Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do. I know it's usually 3 times a week, but I've been on vacation for a little while, been back at ESPN, got a lot of stuff to do, got a new studio that I'm moving into, got work that I'm percolating for, getting revved up for on SiriusXM, debuting September 2nd, not to mention a political show that's going to start September 17th. So I've got a lot of stuff going on, but I had a lot of stuff on my mind this particular day, and I couldn't wait to come on my channel, on my show, to tell y'all about this and to talk about this stuff, all right? So let's just get right to it, and we're going to get started with some sports first before I get into the politics. We're going to go to Cleveland, Ohio, okay? In Cleveland, where the NFL's most talked about, if not most consequential quarterback race is heating up. Dillon Gabriel, who the Browns drafted in the 3rd round out of Oregon before later skipped the taking Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado in the 5th round, made headlines with some comments he had made while being interviewed on the sideline during his preseason debut. Here's the exchange between Mr. Dillon Gabriel and, of course, this reporter, Aditi Kinkhabwala. The reporter says to Dillon Gabriel, as you can see, you gave us some fabulous wisdom on how you tune out the noise and don't let it infiltrate yourself. Will you share that with everybody at home? Dillon Gabriel: yeah, it's just part of it. You know, there's entertainers and there's competitors, and I totally understand that. But my job is to compete, and that's what I'm focused on. Upon hearing this, social media immediately took this as a shot at teammate Shedeur Sanders, he being the quote-unquote entertainer in the equation as opposed to the quote-unquote competitor. This led Dillon Gabriel to revisit his comments to clarify, saying he in fact meant the entertainers were the media. Here's what he said, quote, "I'm all about my team and each other, but for me, I've explained it. Entertainers are you all. A competitor, that's what I am, along with all my teammates. We both have jobs to do," end quote. Of course, Dillon Gabriel finished his college career at Oregon, all right, where a year earlier, head coach Dan Lanning did not mince words with his team ahead of their 2023 matchup with Shedeur Sanders in Colorado, where he had this to say, maybe indicating a culture of naysayers in Eugene about the Buffs. Eugene, Oregon, that is, about the Buffs. Quote, "The Cinderella story is over, men. They're fighting for clicks. We're fighting for wins. There's a difference. This game ain't going to be played in Hollywood. It's going to be played on the grass," end quote. Oregon went on to win that game 42-6, which I watched from start to finish. Colorado got blitzed. No doubt Oregon whipped their ass. But it is important to note Dillon Gabriel was not the Ducks quarterback in the matchup. As for the scene now in Cleveland, Gabriel and Sanders have both seen action in one preseason game so far. Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski is expected to name a starter in the next week. The depth chart will also be of interest, and it is almost certain that the team will not carry 4 quarterbacks on the roster, meaning one of Gabriel, Sanders, Joe Flacco, and Kenny Pickett will likely be released or traded, end quote. I don't believe that last one. I believe that the Browns are one of the rare teams in the NFL that's going to carry 4 quarterbacks, because I think they're looking at Joe Flacco as a safety net. You know, he's 40 years old, he's a veteran, he's a Super Bowl champion, he just took them to the playoffs a couple of years ago, and boom, you know what? They know that he can come in, whether as a starter or as a reserve, and help assuage concerns and fix what's broken to some degree. That's number one. So I think when you look at the future, although he's not that, having that guy, Joe Flacco, in the lineup, knowing, working with QB1s, by the way, working as the QB1 with starters, that is, I mean, you're talking about a situation where you're fighting for the QB2 spot, which is Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel and Kenny Pickett to a lesser degree. Kenny Pickett, as far as I'm concerned, is a career backup. He's already had his opportunities to start in Pittsburgh, didn't pan out so well. Obviously, he was a backup in Philadelphia. We know what that's about. Now here he is in Cleveland. I think he's a perennial backup. And I think when you're looking at a starter for the future, you're talking about Shedeur Sanders or Dillon Gabriel. That's what you're talking about here. Let me say this. In defense of Dillon Gabriel, I totally believe him. I totally believe he was not talking about Shedeur Sanders. I totally believe that he was talking about the media. Shedeur Sanders is his teammate. Shedeur Sanders is competing. Shedeur Sanders did go out there in the first preseason games against Carolina and performed pretty damn well. The only reason he didn't play this past weekend against the Eagles had the oblique injury. We get all of that. But he played pretty damn well. And in some people's eyes, most people's eyes, he played better than Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel had a good game, 6 for 6 on 3rd downs, under pressure, in the pocket, was throwing the ball, showed himself to have composure, etc., etc. You know, the brother played well for the most part. But he did have a pick 6. And he did have a fumble the snap. Those things are true. Shedeur Sanders had a better outing than Dillon Gabriel, even though Dillon Gabriel's outing was not that bad at all. With that being said, clearly, he wasn't talking about Shedeur Sanders. For anybody that's thinking about that, they reach it. Having said all of that, that doesn't make Dylan Gabriel any less of an idiot on this particular day. Just today. I'm not calling him that as a person. I'm not calling him, not character assassinating him. I'm saying that comment was idiotic. Because now you've made yourself a target for the media. Fuck you think you're doing, talking about the media. You haven't earned the right to talk about the media yet. You haven't. Now, the second you go out there and you suck for any reason, the media is going to be all over you because you antagonize them unnecessarily. Why would you do that? And by the way, in a capitalistic society, I got news for you. Competition isn't restricted to the field of play or the court. Competition is everywhere in a capitalistic society. Some would argue it's everywhere globally. Everybody's competing. Everybody. Wall Street, Madison Avenue, the media. It doesn't matter. Corporate America, whatever you choose, everybody's in competition. You know why? Because the victors go to spoils. Everybody don't get to have. Everybody don't get to have. Everybody is vying for their own individual position. Everybody is looking to get paid. Everybody is looking to have their value elevated so they can elevate their quality of life. Everybody. That's how it goes. So for you to sit up there and say, just because you can throw a football and you out on a football field, that you're a competitor, but other folks are entertainers, well, guess what? Isn't there competition in entertainment? Aren't actors and actresses entertainers? Don't they compete at the box office? Don't they compete for cachet? Have you ever heard of an audition, Dylan Gabriel? You think that's just confined to football players or professional athletes? Or even collegiate athletes or high school athletes? You think it's just confined to athletics? You don't know that competition exists every damn where? That's just a dumb, idiotic, entitled statement. Like football is all that matters. You in the NFL, bro. Why don't you go back to the days of COVID? You want to play in front of empty stands? How exciting would that be? You want to play when nobody's watching? You want to play for free? Huh? That's just not smart. I'm not calling you an idiot. I want to be very, very clear about that. I don't know you, respect the hell out of you. You're in the National Football League, vying to be a starting quarterback. You deserve respect. But you need to understand that your comments was disrespectful. We're not disrespecting you. We're commenting to you disrespecting us. Competition exists everywhere. And it just ain't with your arms or with your legs. It's also with your mind, with your heart, with your intestinal fortitude, with your work ethic, with your willingness to go out there in your chosen profession and compete to be the best at what you do. Who the hell are you to diminish anybody? You played for a great coach in Dan Lanning. He ain't playing, he's coaching. Ain't he competing against other coaches? Grow up, bro. Grow up. You're a third-round pick. And now you brought the eye of the storm down upon you because you got some people out there looking at you and thinking you were talking about Shedeur Sanders. You got others who will lean on race because they knew if Shedeur Sanders had said that, he would have been castigated and vilified. So they're saying, why ain't you getting that heat? And last but not least, if it ain't those people, it's people like me who's sitting here saying to you, yeah, we know you weren't talking about Shedeur Sanders, bro. But did you have to say that about the media? You have any idea how disrespectful that was? And totally unnecessary? A reporter comes up to you and asks you a question, and what was the question that the reporter asked? You gave us some fabulous wisdom on how you tune out the noise and don't let it infiltrate yourself. Will you share that with everybody at home? And that was your response? That was your response? There's competitors and there's entertainers. My job is to compete. That's what I'm focused on, really. Good luck, bro. Hope you can play under duress.